The champagne flute trembled in my hand as I stood under the glowing tent, the ocean's roar barely drowning out the whispers of the guests. I wasn't supposed to be here. Not like this. Not as the token gay best man for Noah, the man who'd once promised me forever. By the time I pressed play on that recording, the world would shatter, and I'd be the one holding the pieces. My name is Elliot Harper, and I never thought I'd be the guy to ruin a wedding. I'm a quiet graphic designer from Portland, Maine, more comfortable sketching in my loft than standing in front of 200 strangers. But Noah Carter, charismatic, golden-haired Noah, had a way of pulling me into his orbit, even after he broke my heart. 5 years ago, we were inseparable. Two college kids dreaming of a life together, sneaking kisses in the back of his pickup under starlit skies. Then he left, claiming he wasn't ready for what we had. I rebuilt myself, piece by jagged piece, until his email arrived last month. Elliot, I'm getting married. Be my best man. The audacity stung, but the handwritten note that followed. I need you there, El. Please, hook me like a fish. The wedding was at Cliffside Manor, a sprawling estate perched on Maine's rugged coast. The air smelled of salt and pine, and the late summer sun painted everything gold. I arrived early, my navy suit crisp, but my nerves frayed. Noah's fiancée, Claire Nguyen, was a vision, petite, with sharp cheekbones and a laugh that lit up the room. She greeted me warmly, oblivious to the history between her groom and me. Noah says you're like family, she said, her eyes kind. I forced a smile, my stomach twisting. Family? More like a ghost he couldn't exorcise. The rehearsal dinner was torture. Noah kept stealing glances at me, his blue eyes flickering with something I couldn't name. Guilt, maybe, or regret. I avoided him, sticking to small talk with Clara's cousins and sipping too much wine. But later, as I stood alone by the cliff's edge, he found me. El, he said, his voice low, thanks for doing this. It means everything. His hand brushed my arm, and I froze, the old spark igniting against my will. Don't, I whispered, stepping back. He nodded, but his eyes lingered, heavy with words he wouldn't say. The next morning, I woke to a text from an unknown number. Check your email. You deserve the truth. Attached was an audio file, time-stamped from 2 weeks ago. My hand shook as I hit play. Noah's voice crackled through my earbuds, slurred from too many drinks. Elliot was the love of my life, man. I'm only marrying Clara, 'cause it's what my parents want. I don't love her, not like I loved him. The other voice, his brother Jake, laughed nervously. Dude, you're drunk. Don't say that. But Noah kept going, each were a knife. I invited El as best man to prove I'm over him. But I'm not. I never will be. I sat on the edge of my hotel bed, the world tilting. Noah had used me, not just to soothe his guilt, but to prop up his lie. I was his token, his proof of moving on, while he hid the truth from Clara and himself. Rage burned through me, but so did something else, a flicker of hope. Was he still in love with me? Did it matter? I clutched my phone, the recording looping in my mind, and made a decision that would change everything. The wedding day dawned bright and brutal. Guests filled the tent, their chatter a dull roar against the crashing waves. Clara glowed in her ivory gown, her smile radiant as she walked down the aisle. Noah stood at the altar, handsome as ever, but his eyes kept darting to me. I stood beside him, the best man in name only, my heart pounding as I gripped the USB drive in my pocket. The officiant's voice droned on, and I felt the weight of 200 stares. This was it, the moment to stay silent or to speak. I chose to speak. Excuse me, I said, stepping forward, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. The crowd hushed. Noah's face paled. Clara frowned, confused. I plugged the USB into the sound system, my fingers shaking, and pressed play. Noah's voice filled the tent, raw and undeniable. Elliot was the love of my life. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Clara's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with betrayal. Noah reached for her, but she recoiled, tears streaming down her face. Elliot, what the hell? Noah hissed, his voice breaking. I met his gaze, unflinching. You made me your prop, Noah. She deserves the truth. The recording played on, each word a hammer to the fragile illusion of their wedding. Guests whispered, some stood, others stared in shock. Clara turned and ran, her gown trailing through the grass. Noah followed, calling her name, but the damage was done. I stood alone at the altar, the USB still warm in my hand, as the tent erupted into chaos. Jake, Noah's brother, grabbed my arm. You ruined everything, he spat. But I shook him off, my eyes on the horizon. I hadn't just ended a wedding. I'd set Clara free, and maybe myself too. The ocean roared below, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The tent was a storm of whispers and accusing glares as I slipped out, the weight of what I'd done pressing against my ribs. The USB drive burned in my pocket, a tiny grenade that had detonated a life Noah had carefully built. I wandered toward the cliff's edge, the Atlantic's endless churn mirroring the chaos in my chest. Clara was nowhere in sight, but I could still see her face, shock giving way to anguish as Noah's voice echoed through the speakers. I hadn't meant to hurt her, not really. My target was Noah, his lies, his cowardice. Yet the collateral damage was undeniable. I leaned against a weathered wooden fence, the sea breeze sharp against my skin, and wondered if I'd gone too far. Elliot, Jake's voice cut through the wind. He stormed toward me, his face red. I ask you, what the hell were you thinking? You humiliated her. His fist clenched, and for a moment I thought he might hit me. I straightened, meeting his glare. Noah humiliated her, Jake. I just pulled the curtain back. He scoffed, pacing like a caged animal. You think this makes you a hero? You're just a jealous ex who couldn't let go. His words stung because they weren't entirely wrong. I'd loved Noah fiercely once, and part of me, the part that still remembered his laugh, his touch, had hoped he'd meant what he said in that recording. But I wasn't here to win him back. I was here to stop him from living a lie. He used me to lie to her, I said, my voice low. He used her to lie to himself. Don't you get it? She was going to marry a man who doesn't love her. Jake stopped pacing, his shoulders slumping. He was trying to be what everyone wanted. I shook my head, bitter laughter escaping me. That's not love, Jake. That's a performance. He didn't respond, just stared at the horizon, the fight draining out of him. For a moment, we stood in silence, two men caught in the wreckage of Noah's choices. I found Clara an hour later, sitting on a rocky outcrop beyond the manor's grounds. Her gown was crumpled, mascara streaking her cheeks. She didn't look at me as I approached, just kept staring at the ocean. I'm sorry, I said, sitting a few feet away. I didn't want to hurt you. She laughed, a sharp, broken sound. You didn't. He did. Her voice was raw, but there was steel in it. I knew something was off. He was always distant. I thought it was nerves. I nodded, unsure what to say. Clara deserved better than Noah's half-hearted commitment, but I wasn't sure she'd see it that way. Why'd you do it? She asked, finally meeting my eyes. Play the recording, I mean. Were you trying to save me, or punish him? The question hit like a punch. I wanted to say it was for her, for truth, but the truth was Messier. Both, I admitted. I couldn't let him use me to hide who he is. And I couldn't let you marry a lie. She studied me, her gaze piercing. You loved him, didn't you? I swallowed, the ache in my chest flaring. Yeah, a long time ago. Clara nodded, like she'd already known. He talked about you sometimes. Not a lot, but enough. I thought it was just nostalgia. Now I get it. She stood, brushing dirt from her gown. Thanks, Elliot, for ruining my wedding. Her lips twitched, not quite a smile, but close. Then she walked away, leaving me with the waves and my thoughts. By dusk, the guests had mostly left, their whispers fading into the night. Noah found me in the empty tent, the fairy lights casting long shadows. He looked wrecked, tie gone, shirt untucked, eyes red. Why, El? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Why'd you do it? I wanted to scream, to shake him, but I kept my voice steady. You invited me here to play a role, Noah. The best man who'd smile and pretend you'd moved on. But you haven't, and I'm done being your prop. He flinched, like I'd struck him. I didn't mean it like that. I needed you here. I needed to see you. His voice cracked, and for a moment, I saw the boy I'd loved, the one who'd carved our initials into a tree, who'd promised we'd face the world together. But that boy was gone, buried under years of denial. You don't get to need me anymore, I said, turning away. You made your choice. As I walked back to my car, the weight of the day settled over me. I'd exposed Noah, freed Clara, but what about me? The recording had ended a wedding, but it hadn't erased the ache in my heart. The road ahead was dark, winding through pine forests, and I drove into it, unsure where I'd end up. The drive back to Portland was a blur of headlights and regret. The USB drive sat heavy in my pocket, a reminder of the chaos I'd unleashed. I kept replaying Clara's tear-streaked face, Noah's broken voice, and Jake's accusation. You're just a jealous ex, was I? The question gnawed at me as I pulled into my loft, the city's lights dim against the weight of my thoughts. My apartment was a sanctuary, exposed brick walls, sketches pinned haphazardly, a half-finished canvas in the corner. I poured a whiskey and sank onto the couch, the recording playing in my mind like a bad song on loop. Noah's voice. Elliot was the love of my life. I hated how those words still stirred something in me, a flicker of the love I'd buried years ago. But love didn't justify lies, and it didn't erase the betrayal of being used as a prop. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Clara. Can we talk? Coffee at Bayside Brew, 10 a.m.? I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. What did she want? To yell at me? To thank me? I owed her at least a conversation, so I agreed. Bayside Brew was a cozy spot downtown, all weathered wood and the scent of roasted beans. Clara was already there, in jeans and a sweater, her face bare of makeup but her eyes sharp. You look like you didn't sleep, she said as I sat down. Neither did you, I replied, managing a half-smile. She nodded, stirring her latte. I keep hearing his voice. That recording, it's like a ghost now. I winced, guilt creeping in. I'm sorry you got caught in the crossfire. She waved a hand, dismissing my apology. Don't be. You did me a favor. I was about to marry a man who was in love with someone else. Her voice was steady, but her fingers tightened around her mug. I just wish I'd seen it sooner. We talked for an hour, peeling back layers of Noah's deception. Clara told me how he'd been distant for months, canceling plans, dodging questions about his past. I thought it was stress, she said. Work, family, the wedding. But it was you, wasn't it? You were the shadow he couldn't shake. I shifted uncomfortably. I didn't want to be. I moved on. Or tried to. She leaned forward, her gaze intense. Did you? Because the way you looked at him yesterday, it wasn't just anger. Her words hit too close to home. I sipped my coffee, avoiding her eyes. I loved him once. But that's over. What I did wasn't about getting him back. It was about setting things right. Clara nodded, like she understood, but her expression was unreadable. You're braver than me, she said finally. I'd have kept quiet, let the wedding happen. You didn't. I wasn't sure if that was a compliment or a warning, but I took it as both. Later that day, I got an unexpected call from Mia, a mutual friend from college who'd been at the wedding. Elliot, what the hell happened? She demanded, her voice a mix of shock and curiosity. I gave her the short version, leaving out the recording's details. Noah's a mess, she said. He's holed up at his parents' place, not talking to anyone. Clara's staying with her sister, and people are saying you planned this to get back at him. I gritted my teeth. People can say what they want. I didn't plan anything. I just reacted. Mia sighed. I get it, Elle, but you know how this town is. Gossip spreads like wildfire. Watch your back. Her warning stuck with me as I hung up. Portland was small, and Noah's family was well-connected. I'd made enemies yesterday, and I wasn't sure how many. My phone pinged again, an email from Noah. No subject, just a single line. I need to see you. Please. My heart lurched, but I deleted it without replying. He didn't get to pull me back in. That night, I went to the Anchor, a queer bar downtown where I'd always felt safe. The music was loud, the crowd lively, but I couldn't shake the heaviness. I was nursing a beer when someone slid onto the stool beside me. Elliot, right? The guy was tall, with dark curls and a warm smile, someone I vaguely recognized from the wedding. I'm Leo, Clara's cousin. I saw what happened yesterday. That took guts. I shrugged, unsure how to respond. Or stupidity, I muttered. He laughed, his eyes crinkling. Maybe both. But you did the right thing. Leo's easy warmth was a balm, and we talked for hours about art, music, the messiness of love. He was a photographer, traveling through Maine for the summer, and his passion for capturing raw moments reminded me of why I love creating. For the first time in days, I felt lighter, like I could imagine a life beyond Noah's shadow. As we parted, he slipped me his number. In case you need a friend, he said, his smile lingering in my mind as I walked home. But the past wasn't done with me yet. When I checked my email later, there was another message from the unknown number. You think you know the whole story, but you don't. Meet me tomorrow, 8 p.m., Cliffside Manor. Come alone. The email sat like a stone in my gut as I drove back to Cliffside Manor the next evening. The sky was bruised with clouds, the ocean a restless gray below. Whoever sent that recording had more to say, and I needed answers about Noah, about the truth, about why I was still tangled in this mess. The manor was eerily quiet, the wedding's festive glow replaced by a hollow stillness. I parked near the cliff's edge, my headlights cutting through the dusk. The mysterious cinder hadn't given a name, and every instinct screamed this could be a trap. But curiosity, and maybe a stubborn need for closure, pushed me forward. I stepped out, the wind sharp against my face, and scanned the grounds. A figure stood near the tent's remnants, their silhouette blurred by the fading light. Elliot, a voice called, low and familiar. It was Jake, Noah's brother, his face half hidden under a baseball cap. My shoulders tensed. You sent the recording? I asked, stopping a safe distance away. He nodded, his jaw tight. I didn't want to, but Noah was spiraling. He recorded that drunk ran at my place, and I kept it. Thought might wake him up. He kicked at a pebble, frustration etched into his movements. But you used it to blow everything up. I crossed my arms, the cold seeping through my jacket. You sent it to me. What did you expect? Jake's eyes flashed. I expected you to talk to him, not ruin his life. His voice cracked, and I saw the toll this had taken. On him, on their family. Noah's not eating, not sleeping. He's a wreck, Elle. And Clara, she's gone. Left town yesterday. Guilt twisted in me, but I held my ground. He was going to marry her for the wrong reasons, Jake. You know that. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. You don't get it. Noah's been fighting himself for years. Our parents, this town, they expect him to be the perfect son, the perfect husband. He thought marrying Clara would fix him. I shook my head, anger flaring. Fix him? He's not broken. He's just too scared to be honest. Jake's face softened, just for a moment. Maybe, but you didn't just hurt him, Elle. You hurt all of us. Before I could respond, headlights swept across the cliff. A car pulled up, and Noah stepped out, his face gaunt under the dim light. Jake, what the hell? He snapped, then froze when he saw me. Elle. His voice was raw, like he'd been crying. My heart stuttered, but I forced myself to stay cold. What do you want, Noah? He looked between me and Jake, confusion giving way to panic. You sent him that recording? He asked his brother, his voice breaking. Jake didn't flinch. Someone had to. You were lying to everyone. Clara, Elliot, yourself. Noah's hands balled into fists, and for a moment I thought he'd lunge at Jake. Instead, he turned to me, his eyes pleading. Elle, I didn't mean for it to go like this. I invited you because I miss you. Every day. His words hit like a wave, dragging me under. I wanted to believe him, to fall back into the warmth of his voice, but I couldn't. You don't get to say that now, I said, my voice shaking. You used me to play straight, Noah. You used Clara to play happy. And I'm done being part of your lie. He reached for me, but I stepped back, the cliff's edge dangerously close. I'm sorry, he whispered, tears glinting in his eyes. I love you, Elle. I always have. The confession hung between us, heavy and useless. I turned away, the ocean's roar swallowing his words as I walked back to my car. The drive home was a storm of emotions, anger, grief, and a strange, aching hope. Noah's words echoed, but they couldn't erase the years of hurt. When I got back to my loft, I found a voicemail from Leo, Clara's cousin. "Hey, Elliot, just checking in. You seemed heavy last night. Call me if you want to grab a drink." His voice was a lifeline, a reminder that there was a world beyond Noah's chaos. I saved his number, promising myself I'd call tomorrow. But sleep didn't come easy. I kept seeing Noah's face, hearing his confession. Was he telling the truth, or was it another desperate grab for control? And Jake, why risk his brother's secret? The recording had been a spark, but the fire was Noah's own making. As I stared at my ceiling, the city's hum faint outside, I realized this wasn't just about Noah or Clara. It was about me, about choosing who I wanted to be in the aftermath. The next day, I met Leo at the Anchor again. His easy smile was a contrast to the storm in my head. "You look like you've been through a war," he said, sliding me a beer. I laughed, the sound surprising me. Something like that. I told him about the meeting with Jake and Noah, leaving out the rawest parts. Leo listened, his eyes steady. "Sounds like Noah's got his own demons," he said. "But you're stronger than you think." His words landed softly, and for the first time, I felt like I could believe them. The days after Cliffside Manor blurred into a haze of work and avoidance. I buried myself in design projects, sketching until my hands ached, but Noah's voice lingered like a ghost. "I love you, El." Those words were a trap. I refused to fall into it again. Yet every ping of my phone made my heart race, half expecting another email, another plea. Leo became a steady presence. We met for coffee, then dinners, his easy laughter pulling me out of my head. He was different from Noah, open, unapologetic, with a quiet strength that didn't demand attention. One night, at a small jazz club downtown, he leaned close, his breath warm against my ear. "You're carrying too much, Elliot," he said. "Let it go, even just for tonight." I wanted to, but the weight of the wedding, the recording, Noah, it clung to me like damp clothes. Clara reached out again, this time with an invitation to her sister's house in Brunswick, a 30-minute drive from Portland. "I need to close this chapter," her text read. "And I think you do too." I hesitated, but something in her words felt like a lifeline. When I arrived, her sister's house was warm, filled with the smell of fresh bread and the sound of kids laughing in the backyard. Clara greeted me with a tired smile, her eyes clearer than they'd been at the wedding. "I'm not mad at you anymore," she said, pouring tea. I was for a minute. "But you did what Noah couldn't." She told me she'd moved out of their shared apartment, taken a leave from her job as a nurse, and was rethinking everything. "I loved him," she said, her voice steady. "But I deserve someone who loves me back. Fully." I nodded, the guilt in my chest easing. "You do, and I'm sorry I was part of the mess." She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "You were a mirror, Elliot. You showed me what I didn't want to see." Her words stayed with me as I drove back, the main countryside rolling by in shades of green and gold. Clara was rebuilding, carving out a life that was hers. Could I do the same? I'd spent years defining myself by Noah, by his love, his betrayal, his absence. Maybe it was time to let that go. Back in Portland, I ran into Mia at the farmer's market. She was blunt as ever. "Noah's leaving town," she said, tossing an apple between her hands. "Going to Boston, maybe further. His parents are furious, but he says he needs space." My heart twinged, but I pushed it down. "Good for him," I said, meaning it. Noah needed to face himself, away from the expectations that had crushed him. Mia raised an eyebrow. "And you? You okay?" I shrugged. "Getting there." That night, I called Leo. We met at a pier overlooking Casco Bay, the water glinting under the moon. "I've been running from this for years," I admitted, my voice barely audible over the waves. "Noah, the pain, all of it." Leo listened, his shoulder brushing mine. "You don't have to run anymore," he said. "You're not that guy's shadow. You're you." He reached for my hand, and I let him, the warmth of his touch grounding me. The next morning, I found another email from the unknown number. This time, it was a video, a shaky clip of Noah sitting alone in what looked like a bar. His voice was low slurred. "I messed up, L. I should have fought for you. For us." The video cut off abruptly, and a note followed. "He doesn't know I sent this. Let him go." It wasn't signed, but I knew it was Jake. I deleted the email, my hands steady. Noah's words couldn't pull me back anymore. I spent the day sketching, not for work, but for me. Bold lines, vibrant colors, a new project, something raw and honest. When Leo texted, asking if I want to hike Acadia next weekend, I said yes without hesitation. The future wasn't clear, but it was mine to shape. Noah's confession, Clara's pain, my own anger. They were pieces of a story I was ready to stop telling. As the sun set over Portland, I stood on my balcony, the city alive below. For the first time in years, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. Not Noah's, not anyone's, just mine. The hike with Leo in Acadia National Park was a reset I didn't know I needed. The trails wound through granite peaks and pine forests, the air crisp with autumn's edge. Leo moved with an easy grace, his camera slung around his neck, snapping shots of the rugged coastline. "You ever think about leaving Portland?" he asked as we paused at a lookout, the Atlantic stretching endless before us. I shrugged, catching my breath. "Maybe. Depends on where I'm going and who's with me." He grinned, and the warmth in his eyes made my chest ache in a good way. Back in the city, I threw myself into my art. My latest project, a series of vibrant, abstract posters for a local queer art festival, felt like a declaration. Each stroke was a step away from Noah, from the weight of his lies. I started seeing Leo more, not just as a friend, but as something undefined, something possible. We'd wander Portland's cobblestone streets, sharing stories of our pasts. He told me about growing up in San Francisco, coming out at 16, and the freedom he found in his camera lens. I told him about Noah, the wedding, the recording, everything. He listened without judgment, his hand finding mine when the words got heavy. One evening, as we sat in my loft, Leo flipped through my sketchbook. "These are incredible, Elliot," he said, pausing on a drawing of the cliff from the wedding. "There's so much feeling here." I blushed and used a praise that felt so genuine. "I'm trying to figure out who I am without all that," I admitted. He set the sketchbook down, his eyes steady. "You're already figuring it out. You're braver than you think." Then he kissed me, soft and sure, and for the first time in years, I didn't pull away. But the past wasn't done with me. A week later, I got a call from Mia. "Elliot, you need to see this." She sent me a link to a local blog post titled, "The Wedding That Wasn't, A Tale of Betrayal." My stomach dropped as I read it. A sensationalized account of the wedding, painting me as a vengeful ex who'd orchestrated the chaos to ruin Noah. The comments were brutal. "Elliot Harper's a homewrecker. Poor Clara, caught in his drama." I slammed my laptop shut, my hands shaking. Portland was small, and this kind of gossip could follow me for years. I called Clara, needing to know if she'd seen it. "Yeah," she said, her voice tight. "It's garbage." I told the blogger to take it down, but they're milking the clicks. She paused, then added, "I'm okay, Elliot. I'm moving to Boston for a fresh start. You should think about that too." Her words echoed Leo's, and I wondered if staying in Portland was holding me back. That night, I met Leo at the Anchor. The bar was packed, but the noise faded when I told him about the blog. "People love a villain," he said, his hand on my knee. "But you're not one. You did what you thought was right." I leaned into him, grateful for his steadiness. "What if I made everything worse?" I asked. He shook his head. "You gave Clara a chance to find real love. You gave yourself a chance to." The next day, I got an unexpected email from Jake. "I'm sorry about the blog. I didn't mean for this to blow up. Noah's gone to therapy, trying to figure himself out. I hope you're okay." It was the first time Jake had shown anything like kindness, and it softened the edges of my anger. I didn't reply, but I saved the email, a small step toward letting go. As weeks passed, I started to feel like myself again. Not the Elliot who loved Noah, or the Elliot who played that recording, but a new version, piecing himself together. Leo and I grew closer, our connection built on quiet moments and shared dreams. One night, as we walk along the pier, he stopped, his camera raised. "Hold still," he said, snapping a photo of me against the sunset. "You look free," he murmured, and I realized he was right. Winter crept into Portland, dusting the streets with snow and turning the air sharp. I stood at the edge of a new chapter, my life no longer defined by a single, shattering moment. The recording, the wedding, Noah, they were fading into the background like a song you hum less often with time. Leo and I were official now, a quiet commitment sealed with late-night talks and stolen kisses in my loft. He'd extended his stay in Maine, renting a small studio near the waterfront to work on a photography project. "You're my muse," he teased one morning, snapping a candid of me sipping coffee, my hair a mess. I laughed, swatting at him, but the truth was he made me feel seen, not as Noah's ex, not as the guy who ended a wedding, but as Elliot whole and enough. Clara sent me a postcard from Boston, a photo of the Charles River, her handwriting neat on the back. "Found a new job. Healing, slowly. Thank you for the truth." I pinned it to my wall, next to my sketches, a reminder that pain could lead to growth. I hadn't heard from Noah directly, but Mia kept me updated. He was still in therapy, working through years of denial and pressure. Part of me wished him well, but I no longer needed his redemption to find my own. The blog post had faded from public memory, replaced by newer gossip, but its sting lingered in quiet moments. I'd lost some clients, old friends who sided with Noah's family, but I gained something better: clarity. I wasn't the villain, nor the hero, just a man who'd chosen honesty over silence. My art flourished, my posters for the queer festival earning praise across the city. At the opening, Leo stood beside me, his hand in mine, as strangers admired my work. "You're unstoppable," he whispered, and I believed him. One evening, as snow fell outside, I found an old photo of Noah and me in a drawer, a college snapshot, our arms around each other, grinning under a Maine sunset. I stared at it, waiting for the familiar ache, but it didn't come. Instead, I felt gratitude for the love we'd had, for the lessons it taught me, for the strength to walk away. I tucked the photo back in the drawer, not out of pain, but because it belonged to a past I no longer lived in. The next day, I proposed a new project to Leo, a joint exhibit, my art alongside his photography, celebrating love in all its messy, beautiful forms. He lit up, his ideas spilling out as we sketched plans over wine. "This could be big," he said, his eyes bright. "Not just for us, but for everyone who sees it." I nodded, imagining a gallery filled with stories, queer, straight, everything in between, each one a testament to truth and resilience. As the year turned, I stood on my balcony, Leo's arms around me, the city glowing under a blanket of snow. The ocean's distant roar reminded me of Cliffside Manor, of the wedding that wasn't, of the recording that changed everything. But it also reminded me of the future, open, uncharted, mine to claim. I'd played the recording to break a lie, but in doing so, I'd found my own truth. Love wasn't about holding on to the past, but about building something real, right now. I turned to Leo, his face soft in the winter light. "Ready for this?" I asked, meaning the exhibit, our relationship, the life we were creating. He smiled, kissing me gently. "With you? Always." And as the snow fell, I knew I was exactly where I was meant to be, free, whole, and finally home.